Hi there, welcome to Booster Books on the future and social change. You know, as I move around the world speaking at leadership events and commenting in media on social change, I'm often asked for recommendations on what we should be reading if we're going to get ahead of the curve when it comes to change. In this file, I've put together some books that I think will help you and add value to your life as a leader or just as a citizen and individual. I hope that there's something in this list just for you. The first book I'd like to recommend on the future and social change is probably the first tome ever written on futurism as such, and the author is probably what you would call the first professional futurist. It's, of course, Future Shock by the well-known Alvin Toffler. This is the book in which Toffler predicted a roaring current of change, as he called it, which would leave, he said, people feeling disoriented and confused. In many ways, I think we're living with the fulfillment of that prediction today. Now, in this book by Toffler, you won't find too many references to specific technologies like mobile phones or social networking. But what you will learn about is the very human implications of rapid change in technology. I think this is a book for anybody who has an interest in where we might be headed. Though it was written in the 70s, it is still very much relevant and in vogue today. Written by the author of the classic Megatrends, this little book by John Naisbitt is called High Tech, High Touch. It, again, was written a few years ago now. It was written in the 90s, but it's still very relevant and in many ways ahead of the times. It's talking about the relationship between technology and our need for human interaction. I think the biggest point he makes is that in the rise of high tech, there is a corresponding need for high touch. And it's not surprising that in the last year or so, a study here in the United Kingdom has shown that the average Brit has 130 Facebook friends and just 3 real friends. I think this book is very timely, and every leader who wants to negotiate change should certainly invest in high tech, high touch. Now here's a book with a great title, sure to intrigue. No Time to Think, The Menace of Media Speed and the 24-Hour News Cycle by Rosenberg and Feldman. It's a book that looks at the difference that digital social networking technology has made and is making to the way we not only gain and gather news, but the way we relate to each other and converse. This is an age of great challenge in terms of maintaining human relationship, human interaction, as against cyber friendship. What's the relationship between the two? Is one damaging to the other? How do we manage both in an increasingly digital world? This is one of my favorite books on the subject of social media, and I think you'll enjoy it too. No Time to Think. Now this quite thick book, Life Inc. by Douglas Rushkoff, is not always a comfortable read, but it's an important book, especially for those of us who are trying to manage social change and to help people flourish in the midst of it. He's talking about how we as individuals really need to take back some freedoms that we've lost as the world has become more commodified and more corporatized. It's a book about the joy of being truly human in an increasingly digital age. I think you'll like this book. As I said, it's not always comfortable, but it is a great challenge. Now this book is one of the most provocative, insightful, challenging, and I think important books I've read in a long time. It's simply called Fluenza. It's written by a journalist by the name of Oliver James. Now in this book, James tracks how materialistic living has, in his view, cheapened the lives of people in many Western countries, taking away their sense of meaning and fundamental joy, happiness and contentment. It's not a religious book at all, though it might sound like one. It's a book that's based on many factual studies, great in-depth research, and of course anecdotal stories, anecdotal evidence. I think you'll find this book, as I have, very challenging as an individual, but also if you're a leader of any enterprise. Fluenza by Oliver James. Robert Shapiro is a former advisor to such political luminaries as Al Gore. His book, Futurecast 2020, A Global Vision of Tomorrow, is really a must-read for all of those of us who are interested in future change and social transformation. He says some very unsettling things, as futurists often do, but he makes some wonderful points, particularly, I think, about areas like what he calls the demographic earthquake, the shrinking populations, the shrinking birth rates of nations in the Western world and what that means to us, not just economically, but socially in terms of our civilizations. Grab this book. It's not light bedtime reading, but I think you'll find it useful. Okay, that's it for the first installment of Booster Books on the future and social change. I hope there's something that'll add value to you in that list. If not, check out part 2. Bye for now.